We are back for round two of the Six Nations 2026. Are any of us any happier than we were last week? Spoiler alert, the Scottish one is, the other of us, not so much. And only one of us is drinking the pain away. Anyway, let's start the show. I am joined this week by a somewhat reduced panel of Scottish Ethan and the shocking return of that Caolan. Good evening, gents.
Good evening.
Good evening, Hugh. How are we?
Very well. Caolan's standing in for Ulster Adam this week, who is not with us. Unfortunately, shout out Adam. We did want to have Mike back this week, which would have been by very popular demand. Lots of very positive comments towards Mike, Italian Mike, last week. We will get him back in the future. Shout out Mike. Hope you're having a great day / week, mate. Anyway, we managed to make it a ridiculously long pod last week. So not that I want to delay talking about Wales or anything, but how have we been enjoying the Winter Olympics?
I'm the wrong man to ask for this. I have not watched a lot. Like I got the Discovery Plus 2 weeks for the Summer Olympics. This time around, it's just not a thing over here. There's not a lot of, Irish people in this. Like we literally have a team of four, so not a lot to
Oh
grab
yeah.
onto, But
Now
there
you
is a
mention
couple of
it.
storylines that have made it. I'm not going to mention which ones, but a couple of them have transcended the waters.
Now you mention it. I hadn't it hadn't occurred to me that haven't seen any Irish people there. Ethan, what I have learned is that all curling players are Scottish.
Yeah, even unfortunately the cheating Canadian bastard ones. Um, yeah, I don't know how we came up with curling, to be honest. They just polished some stones one day. It's like, here, lads, let's do this.
Yeah. Pass us that broom. I've got an idea.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. I enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed the skeleton bob win from out Western. That was so thrilling. And he's done the double as well. They've got it in the team one as well. So well done to him. Used to play rugby, tenuous link. Used to play for Seven Oaks RFC.
No,
So
learn something new every day, folks.
their director of rugby's phone has been glowing red, I think, ever since he's won that. As people wanted in an interview, I did message someone who works for the rugby paper, like, this is the tap in, lads. You got to get on with this. But if you could play, Ethan, if you could
Yeah.
play any Winter Olympic sport, which one would you choose?
I'm just trying to think of what ones are there. I feel, is it the biathlon? I've never skied before, but I feel like I could probably do the shooting quite well if I ever learned how to shoot. I feel like that might be a bit easier than skiing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Kaylin, do you do have you ever
I
skied?
no, I've never skied. I'm not that type of Irish guest, but I'm having a quick look at the Olympic website to see what stands out. To be fair, ice hockey is kind of the one that you kind of instantly get drawn to, the fighting and all that when they do fight. But I was watching one of the skiing races the other day, and it is quite impressive, but it wouldn't be for me. So I'll go with that. But I have two very dodgy knees. I don't think it would end well.
I feel like snowboarding is the coolest one. That's what all the cool kids do, is anything snowboarding related. But I think I'd like the skeleton best because it's the one that's most like cars in a way. And I like cars. So there's something about it that I just get. Anyway, that's enough stalling. Let's talk about rugby. So we're going to start off in Dublin, I have decided, with Ireland versus Italy. Now, Caelan, the discourse after this game has been absolutely fascinating because you wouldn't know from the chat that's been happening since that Ireland actually won this game.
Correct. I feel like you're subtweeting or sub-posting me there when you say that, but I think what's most worrying is this feels like Ireland's level now. And I like, look, if Mike was here, I'd be, because I know Mike myself, I'd be like, not to be disrespectful to Italy, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but Ireland at their pomp, even 2 years ago, where they weren't at their absolute peak, they beat Italy 36-0, something like that. And Italy had a good tournament that year, you have to remember. Like they really kicked on. They drew with France 2 weeks later. But it feels like this is kind of Ireland's level now, where if they max out, I think they're like fourth best team in the world. But I think in general, they're more closer to the chasing pack. And I think to Italy's credit, they are really gaining on everyone. Like the back row of Zuliani, Canone, and Michele Lamaro were incredible. I thought Garbisi is as good as I've ever looked, as good as he's ever looked. You know, I've seen him 2 or 3 times live, second time this season actually. And he's been good twice, unfortunately. But he was impressive. Thought Menicello was so close to just breaking away so many times, and I thought Lina
He's a
was
joke of a player.
he is a joke of a player to be fair, and Lina doesn't lick it off a stone, as they say. Like he's really, really impressive. He seems to just play his best rugby when he's in an Italian shirt. But and like look, we get into Ireland, we get into I don't know whether it's going to be set piece or 10 or attack or defense or whatever way you want to go with it, but there's not a single element of Ireland's game right now that they're world class in, and I think that's the biggest concern.
I would say so. And we'll stick with Ireland for the moment because they won. And the tradition of this show is that we focus on the winners first. But you are right. I don't think there's anything, particularly of Ireland's game, that I can point to and go, they can hang their hat on this at the moment. Even their line out, even their like line out defense is really nothing at the moment. And you can say they got the job done and it was 3 tries to 1 at the end of the day. But it's kind of you don't you're watching them play and you're like, I'm not sure really what you're trying to do here. I think that the replacement halfbacks made a great impact when they came on, both
Mhm.
Crowley and Gibson Park, which is interesting because you tend to think of it as kind of two duos, the Leinster duo and the Munster duo. So the fact that it was swapped over and the bench came on and made an impact, although you know being the replacement halfback is sometimes an advantage because it's often quite easy to sit on the bench for 60 minutes and come on and look better than the guy who you replaced. But just generally, I think we can talk about tactics and we can talk about selection all we want with Ireland, but at the end of the day, for me, the thing that really stood out was physicality. I thought that Italy were won the physicality battle in this game, and that's not something that you expect to say. Whether you want to say that is dominant hits or gain line or scrum, however you want to define it, Italy were better in those facets, which is not something that we've probably said in the last 10 years of this fixture.
No, no, absolutely. And like I think it is to Gonzalo Quesada's, you know, to him that Italy have become a really tough team to beat. Like a really dogged, tenacious team. And like look, we sat with Quesada and Lamaro after the game yesterday, and Lamaro in particular is a really impressive guy. Like for a young enough captain, he's a really impressive speaker. Um, but that doesn't mean that Ireland should be blown out of collisions time after time after time. Like
There
when
was
it,
one where Canoni ran from the backfield. I think it was Canoni ran from the backfield into two Irish defenders who's seen him coming from a mile off, and he got over the gain line. I was like, that shouldn't have happened.
no, it shouldn't. And the same late on before actually in Ireland's last attacking sequence of the game, there's a Caolan Doris folds around the corner, and this is where like certain stats can be skewed. Ireland has 60% rucks under 3 seconds. That's pretty decent. That's quick ball. That's both nines doing their job. Gibson Park gets there. This one is lightning quick. It's like a second and a half. Doris folds around the corner. He is met by, I think it was Zambanan,
Yeah,
the replacement. I think it is who hits him first. And technically, Doris gets over the gain line. Technically, he made Mishra's post contact, but he is held up for 3, 4 seconds. So, like, Ruckstadt will do well. The Mishra's post contact will do
that's a
well.
great example of misleading stats. Yeah,
But it's actually like it's a killer because Italy have so much time to get ready. Whereas if he's and how often did we see it in 23 and 24 where Doris is piercing through defenses? He's hitting that line perfectly. He's getting Ireland over the gain line, and then it's Byrne on the next phase or Furlong on the next phase. But this time it's slowed down. It gets jagged. I think 2 or 3 phases later is where we see Ringrose having nowhere to go, cuts back in and tries to do what Ringrose does a lot, where he's like, surely there's going to be someone on the ground around the ruck, and I think I can squeeze in there. And he did a good job. It was a good carry. But I think that moment for me summed it up because that was where Italy were just ready for Ireland in the same way that France were. And yes, this is a big Italian team. Like they are quite physical, but also at the same time they're not that much bigger. And this is where I'm really concerned about Ireland is they are possibly at the level now where whether it's fatigue or whether it's game plan or whatever, they're playing small. And if you're a pack that's playing small, you're really, really on the back foot. Because even as it is, the Irish pack that was selected, Luckman's not a ball carrier. Sheehan is not himself this season, like at all. I think everyone would agree with that. Clarkson got melted at scrum time. McCarthy has been hasn't carried with any real impetus the last couple of weeks. Izuchuku had one good break. Doris
It's
had a couple of nice
mad to me.
touches,
Just sorry to interrupt you, mate.
but
It's
that's it.
mad to me that this was Izuchuku's first ever Six Nations game. I don't know how that's
Yeah,
managed.
I think, and this is a joke before any comment sections come after me because we've had a week of it. But I think Ryan Baird might secretly be a wizard because every time Tom Ahern or Cormac Izuchuku gets called up by Ireland, they seem to get injured, but they'll play 20 games a season. It doesn't make sense. It's illogical. So that's why I think Izuchuku, this is his first game. And actually, funnily enough, the report before the summer squad came out was his season is nearly done. He may have to go for surgery. He addressed it afterwards. Um, and he did say, it's like, yeah, we thought I was going to go for surgery, but we said, we'll try injections. We'll see how you respond to them. Responded pretty well and played well. He was Ireland's main line out option. Like, and this is another thing, he mentioned it himself. Ireland in that number six role, whether it was O'Mahony or Baird or Conan or Izuchukwu or whether that's Tom Ahern or whoever grows into that role in the future, they want that person to be a line out option. And Izuchukwu was the primary one. And I think maybe, just maybe, Ireland may look at that game against England and say, burn into the second row for scrummaging. A toss up between McCarthy and Adogbo for their scrummaging. Adogbo's a better scrummager. I've heard this quite a lot from a lot of people. He's a
He's
phenomenal scrummager.
massive.
He is massive, but like
But like
technically he's a brilliant scrummager.
quite
And I think
often
they may
you,
go that way with Itsuchuku at six. And then
yeah,
you'll shore up the set piece and it'll be a lot easier.
because Izuchuku says that he prefers playing six to second row.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure I've seen him say that. But
Typically for Ulster, they like to have two edge forwards, so they'll have both their flankers, and like he's that tall, rangy guy. Like he'll burst most tackles from there.
yeah, a dog bow for like you see players at club level and they look big, and you think, okay, he's big, but then quite often you see at test level they don't look as big.
Mm.
He came on the pitch was like, good grief, that is I don't know whether the green has made him look bigger or something, but
Hey, he looked big in red as well. I had someone say to me recently that they reckon his playing weight at the moment is close to 130 kg, and
they don't grow on trees.
they don't grow on trees. Now, don't get me wrong, his brother Sean is about 110 kg at 6'5" and has got wheels. Like so there's athletic genes in that Adogbo family that could service Irish rugby for a long, long time. But like that level of size, I think, is something that Ireland may need to address because as good as Joe McCarthy has looked this season for Leinster, he hasn't looked that good for Ireland. Now, Adogbo only got 10 minutes. It is very unlikely he starts in Twickenham, but I think he has to be in the squad personally because we
Yeah,
saw what happened with that set piece. Furlong, look, I said it on the Interpro show a few times. If prop ends up off his feet, technically it's a penalty against the team that caused the prop to go off his feet. World Rugby don't see it that way anymore, even though it's still in the law book, whatever. That's all I'll say on that. Personally, for me, it's a safety issue. But Adogbo locked out the very next scrum when he came on behind Furlong. You like an old trope that I know a guy says with you balance a point on their backs. It was that steady, do you know? And I think there is something to be said because like especially now you look at England and you're like, well, if you stop them at set piece, you can really get at this team. Now Ireland have issues in attack and in defence as well. Transition play, I think Ireland are. I think you could argue Ireland are the worst team in the Six Nations at transition phases at the moment. Bar say Robert Balogun's spark over the weekend. We'll talk about him, but there's definitely questions that if Ireland take the right approach and they really get into the weeds of how England performed, I think they may look at, do you know what? Maybe the answers are here in front of us, guys. Maybe it's not Joe McCarthy and James Ryan in the second row. Maybe there's answers right here staring us in the face.
Yes, well, I think that James Ryan stocks have risen today thanks to the performance of his nemesis, but we'll come on to that a bit later.
Is that
The
still going on? Oh my
uh,
goodness.
we'll get cancelled. The just on the size of players, if I just may pontificate on this for a while, Zambon in the Italian second row, I think he wore number 5. He's so tall that there were times in this game where he jumped for the line out, came down, and I thought that Ireland had driven early because he was kind of towering above the rest of the mall. And then when I
Mm.
saw him, I think he got substituted and he walked off. I was like, oh no, he's just that tall. He's just ridiculously, stupidly tall. And then this gives me a nice segue to just slide something else in. But you talk about someone being twice the size of someone. There was a couple of times I saw Hollie Davidson talking to Caolan Doris, and I was like, I'm pretty sure you could fit three of you inside him. like, that is quite a size difference. But shout out Hollie Davidson as well, first ever woman to
Mm.
referee a Six Nations match. In my
And
opinion,
if you don't mind me saying it, that's Michaela Lamero took the time at the end of the press conference to bring it up and to congratulate her and to talk about how great of a referee she is and how great of a communicator. And that was one of the moments I think everyone looked around the room and was like, fair play. Like this was like he was the last person to do a presser.
mm,
He'd been doing one in Italian, then English, and he waits until the very end so he can have this monologue to just talk about her. And I'm like, do you know what? This is the guy who gets it.
yeah, and in my opinion, it was long overdue. I think
Mm.
she's a referee who other referees have maybe been given an opportunity in front of her that shouldn't have, in my personal opinion. We'll come on to one particular decision that was made not actually by her, but by her TMO a little bit later. But I guess, Ethan, she's Scottish, you're Scottish. So
Yep.
what did you make of this game?
I thought she had a really good game. I think the two yellow cards, I don't know if that might be one of the decisions you're wanting to make or if it's the other one that involved Lina. I think they're both quite, in some ways, it's like, yeah, they're both by the book, but I do think they're both a bit harsh in the sense of like Linus one, he did an incredible like one-handed catch like 2 minutes before. And I think in this, like the one that was for a deliberate knock on, I was like, yeah, technically it was deliberate in the sense you're trying to catch it, but I don't think it was a malicious knock on. It's still obviously, it's like, yeah, legally it's the right decision. And then the Craig Casey one, I think, is a bit harsh because he just got ran over.
He's just kind of stood there, to be honest. And I
Yeah,
don't, I think
That's a passive tackle.
my,
Like
yeah.
letter of the law, surely.
my one and only criticism of Holly is that she does sometimes hedge her bets a little bit and just go yellow cards, just plays it safe a little bit, let the
Mm.
bunker make the decision. And for me, I'm looking at that Craig Casey one. I'm like, letter of the law, okay. And I don't think that the referee has not followed the law in any way, but
Mm.
I just think that he's just stood there and he's got
Yeah.
his face
Mm.
smashed. And in terms of like what has he done wrong? He hasn't done anything. He's just stood there, and it's
Yeah.
happened.
Technically, I think letter of the law going yellow card in review is fair enough.
Yeah,
I
Mm.
do not understand how that's high degree of danger. It's a passive hit. You could argue that there's a little bit of mitigation in the fact that Canone is being tackled at the same time the impact is
Mm.
made, and Canone leads with the forearm. Like it's only marginal that the forearm connects afterwards. So it's I don't see how that's high level of danger. And I was on here last season and I've been on the intro show and I've always said this, I'm firmly for the game being safer and whatever. But in an incident like that, Craig Casey is like I've met him. He is shorter than me and I'm 5'8". And Canone is definitely bigger than me because he's a line out jumper. Like eventually there has to be a common sense. And I think this is the issue with World Rugby. Everything has to be quicker. Speed the game up, speed the game up. We've seen it in Paris on the opening night. Everything was quick and rushed. And that's fine to a certain degree. But they're also, I think if you're going to go that way, the common sense argument is going to creep up more because you're not necessarily going through the framework bit by bit because you are having to be quicker and not read it out over the PA. And I think then and I do have a lot of sympathy for Holly here, and I do agree. I think she's someone who hedges her bets. I think she's at her best in an open, expansive game, like a lot of modern referees, where their fitness can show as well in particular. But
she's
this one,
ridiculously fit. Like I've watched her referee in
unreal.
Pretoria more than once, and I'm like, the players around you are absolutely dying, and you.
Yeah. Who gets those South Africa games is not like it's not for nothing because it is the same kind of five or six referees. But to just kind of end on that, like I don't see how that's high degree of danger. And look, there is probably an element of, conscious bias here with Ian Tempest because he was referee of the Women's World Cup quarterfinal.
She very rarely gets really strong TMOs. That's what I will say about Holly.
Is there strong TMOs? Is that an
Well,
avenue to go down? Do you
well,
know?
kind of focusing on that with the men in shallow forward pass. For me,
It's a try.
for me, it's fine.
to
I,
try.
th-
Yeah,
I think that's a very clear. It's because he says to her, "It's a clear and obvious forward pass," and so she goes, "Or you've got a better view of it than me. You've already seen 5 replays by the time you've brought it to my attention." Okay, okay. I think maybe a more kind of been round the houses referee, like someone like a Luke Pearce or a Ben O'Keefe, someone who's been there, done that for a long time, might go, for me, mate, it's fine. So I'm just going to give the
yeah.
try.
I think, and I'm not saying this in like out of anything else, because he was telling TMO Judy recently. I think someone like Angus Gardner in
Yeah.
particular, I think he just goes play on. I think
Super Rugby.
that it's
Super Rugby,
Super
play on.
Rugby rule of cool. Like I saw it live and I saw forward. Now I was positioned just inside, say, the Italian half. As that play happens, that's over in the 22. It looks forward from my position. The more I watch it, it's a joy for me, to be honest.
Mm. Not to focus too much on I don't want to focus too much on ref chat because I think there's plenty to talk about in this game. Well, I'll come back to kind of my last question on Ireland in a minute, but I think from an Italian point of view, it's interesting to me that there's this kind of like duality going on with the discourse of Italy were amazing, but Ireland were rubbish, but then Ireland have won. So for me, I know some people might say, oh, two things can be true. For me, not in this case. I think if you're saying that Ireland were rubbish, then Italy have lost to a rubbish team, and maybe that's just being a bit oversimplistic, but I think what we've seen is a long-term issue with Italy. And if it's a shame Mike's not here because I would have loved to have asked his opinion on it, is Italy just don't score that many points. Like if you look back over the last, I went back until the 2024 November series. Since then, they've only broken the 25-point barrier twice, and it was against Chile and Namibia. And they've been held to less than 20 points in 50% of their games in that time. 16 games. 8 of them, they've been held to less than 20 points. You're not in this era of rugby where try records are falling by the wayside and more high scoring games. You're not going to win games by not scoring that many. And I know that it's considered like bloody woke rugby to turn down shots at three, but you're not going to win test matches by taking shots at three anymore, I'm afraid.
No.
Maybe semi-finals and finals of World Cups and things like that, yes. But that's not the way that the game has gone. And you look at the stats like Italy's convert 22 entry. So both Ireland and Italy had the same 22 entries, 9 each. Ireland's was 2.2, which is slightly below average. Italy's was 0.8. Like
No,
it's
you won't win any games with that, like
and
fundamentally.
that's not a one-off thing for Italy as well. They've been below average for at least a year, maybe not more at this rate. So I kind of feel like if we're to if we want to be giving Italy their respect as an improving team, we need to say, hey, look, your attack's not that great, unfortunately. Um, so that's all I got to say about that. I guess.
Down three players, it should probably be said, because I think Italy being down the players that they were is very different to Ireland's. Yes, don't get me wrong, Ireland were a little bit thin on the ground in certain positions, but it's a depth question. Like Capozzo, Rex, Varney, like world class. Well, maybe not all world class, but top level talents in that Italian team. And I think you did kind of start to see it. I think to that attack point, well, firstly, Ireland can't say much. 13 points against New Zealand, 13 points against South Africa, 14 points last week, 20 points this week. And very fortunate to get to 20 points this week, to be honest. Ireland's attack is stale. But I think for Italy, because they pick, like for me, a back row that is so defensively focused, and even a second row pairing that is so set piece focused, you're relying so much on Brexit Menoncello. And then once you take one of those out, then as well, it's a big ask. Transition rugby, I thought they looked really, really good. They did well off scraps. They'll win a couple of extra collisions with Line and Ioane because they're so physical. But as you said, when it gets to the 22, like, do they have a proper top level primary ball carrier? I think Fischetti of 3 or 4 years ago, maybe. I'm not sure if he still is. Canone to a degree. But it's kind of that thing then, if you only have one power carrier, you may as well have none, do you know?
Mm, yeah, that's a great point. Kind of that brings me to the last question, which is about Ireland selection. So I really enjoyed the Interpro show last week. We'll talk more about that later. And my favorite bit of the show was when you were talking about how, what team you should select. And in order to freshen up the team, you didn't actually have to make that many changes to make
Mhm.
it feel a bit more fresh. What's your reflection on the selection for this game, did because I think the only way that you're taking positives from this game from an Ireland point of view is you're talking about players who got an opportunity. I should say that I think that the Ulster players all played well. I think Big Stu is maybe having his best season that I've watched him. I thought I really enjoyed seeing Balogun get on the score sheet as well. No Doak, I thought was a little bit disappointing. I would have liked to have seen Doak in this game, but given the impact that Gibson Park had, maybe that was a turned out to be a good thing. So Caolan, what's your take on the way that selection went for this game? Did you get players who you wanted to see given a chance?
Yeah, I wasn't 100% happy with the squad because I thought people went, "Oh my God, it's six changes. Three of those six players have more than 40 caps." And even just saying like if you said that James Lowe or for instance had 50 caps, no one would bat an eye, but he only has 41 or 2, I think it is.
Had a great
Now,
game, by the way, James Lowe.
had a brilliant game. One of his best games in green. I think it's his best game in about 18 months, actually. Bar maybe the England game at the start of last year's Six Nations, he was very, very good that day.
Yep.
But
Actually,
besides that,
I'd throw in the game against Wales. I think without James Lowe, Ireland potentially lose that game.
that's true. But we'll get on to Wales and how good Wales are a little bit later on, unfortunately. Or maybe not. Maybe it'll get edited out. But I
More Winter
one
Olympics chat, I think.
no, please no. One of the things I keep seeing is, oh, sure, Ireland have no depth. What do you expect? I don't think Jeremy Luckman had his best game, but I think he's shown he is test caliber. I think Clarkson struggled, but I think he's test caliber. Izuchuku was excellent. I don't agree that Craig Casey was bad. I think he was maybe 6 out of 10. I don't think he was at his level, but I don't think he was that bad that you were like, oh, he's under pressure. I still think he was good.
I suspect his nose was hurting.
Well, that as well. And
That
like
must
when
be
you
distracting. I don't
that
care who
must be
you are.
distracting. Like he has some pain thresholds is something I keep hearing about him. Like it's insane. But I thought he was fine. I thought McCluskey again, like he's got 30 caps. He's been around for 10 years, but it feels like a rotation guy because he's never been given this run of games. He was phenomenal. He was absolutely phenomenal. I asked him about it afterwards. I was like, how often have you tried that QB pass, that quarterback pass? He's like, honestly, more than you'd imagine, but not like that. I just hold the ball in one hand. And I'm like, suppose you're 6'4" and you're built like a train. I suppose you're probably able to, do you know what I mean? Balogun was excellent as well. I thought Osborne, I'd have a little bit of concern about just his general pace on transition play. I think Ireland could get caught out the same way when Leinster went over to Welford Road and played Leicester this year. Leicester kicked really well at moving that Leinster back three around because they weren't the quickest. It was O'Brien, Lowe, and Frawley. And I think England may try and do the same thing, just keep moving them. And actually, just really quickly in the inverse, Italy defended with a 12-2 split for a lot of the game because they knew if they took out Ireland's long kicking game, they had a massive opportunity and kept winning collisions from there. But to go back, I think Ireland's depth players typically have been some of their better ones. I think Dan Sheehan isn't playing well. I said already, I don't think the second rows are at their best. Doris has been up and down, better this week than he was last week, but hasn't been at the same level he was at last year. I think Ringrose grew into the game but wasn't brilliant. Like these are Lions. These are players that were integral to a Grand Slam. These are very big name players. I think if people want to point the sharp end of the axe at anyone, I'd be sparing some of the newer faces and I'd be looking at more the established guys because I don't think they've been playing all that well. And Jack Conan, fair play, was like, I don't believe in a Lions hangover. I don't think that's the reason. Fair enough. But the math says there is one. But if you don't believe that and you produce like he did at the weekend, fair enough, because I actually think he did all right. But to that point, I thought all the new guys did well. And like to kind of finish on one of the players we started on, Edward Adogbo, 9 tackles in 10 minutes. Everyone he hit, it was just stopping them point blank. Like I think the kind of hold the kids are all right. Like a lot of these lads aren't kids. Adogbo, fair enough for 23, pretty much is. But a lot of the younger players are stepping up. And I think that's where you can kind of get caught in that murky zone. I kind of relate it to maybe when France were at their worst, and I don't think Ireland are at that level. They have a lot of players who were just always in there. They were never in the churn, but they were never good. Do you know what I mean? They were always the players who kept dropping duds, and I think Ireland could get out lost in that cycle. Like James Lowe got dropped, performed the following week. Jack Conan probably could have started in Paris, performs the following week. Cormac Isuchukwu, unlucky not to play in Paris, very good this week. I think that Balogun the same. I think that's what you want to see. You want to see that competition back in the squad, and I sincerely hope we're there. I won't hold my breath, but I hope we're there, and I hope that next week's team sheet and the team sheet against Wales reflects this. I don't want to see James Gibson Park starting against Wales, to be honest. I actually don't want to see Gary Ringrose starting against Wales, but I think a little bit different centre minutes is important. Like, I don't want to see James Ryan starting against Wales. I want to see, because, like, again, and I'm not trying to be disparaging, Ireland should be beating Wales anyways. Do you know
It's
what I mean?
shit. Yes, I'm okay
Yeah,
with you saying it.
I won't say it because, like, I'm going to be nice here, but like Ireland should be able to beat them with a rotated team. Do you
Mm.
know, even more rotated than what we've seen this week.
I probably agree. And we'll talk about Wales in a moment. But before we do that, I want to remind people that if they're enjoying the show so far, they need to subscribe to the Global Game Line. We have had an influx of new subscribers over the last week or so. We want to get to 1,500 by the end of the season. Guess what's back? The Women's Rugby Treehouse is back. One
So
of
back.
one of the most important shows in rugby podcasting YouTube. There is no other show that is a fan-led, fan-created amateur podcast with an all-female panel on YouTube, as far as I'm aware. Apologies if there is, I'm not aware of it. And it's one of the shows that we are most proud to have on the channel. There's obviously, as I aforementioned, there is the Inter-Pro show, which is the Irish specialist podcast, which is hosted by Caolan. Also includes Ulster Adam, normally of this parish, and a voice from every single province, which we think makes it the only one of its kind. So,
The the on
remarkably,
the only one in Ireland, yeah.
wow, that is odd, but we're very proud of that as well. We've also got a French rugby podcast that I host we're very happy with how that's doing. And then we've got Scrum of the Earth, which you may know has been around for a long time, hosted by the legend that is David, who also hosts an American rugby podcast when they're playing. We've also got When the South Africans Are Playing, the Bit of an Animal podcast. You need to subscribe to the Global Game Line if you want to consider yourself truly educated on rugby around the world. That's all I shall say about that. But it's now time to move on. Ethan, it's now time to move on to the
Yep.
Calcutta Cup. And what do you even say? Rinse and repeat. It's the same every year. You know,
Yeah.
There's a Welsh song that goes, "So long as we beat the English, we don't care." And I'm starting to think that maybe we need to bequeath you that song because it
Yeah.
seems the most fitting. All I'll ask is this: Toonie in?
I'd probably say I'm still Townsend out, but it's good for him to try and leave on a high. And it shows that Scotland's capable of doing stuff, like doing well. It's just we need someone who can get Scotland to play like this, like as the minimum standard. Um, which is, it's a shame. He's done well. He's had a great record for the Calcutta Cup. It's just, yeah, we need someone to then take the next step. But I mean, he definitely bounced back from last week. It was a completely different Scotland. Like my my gosh.
Where do
Uh,
you think that came from? What was the winning of this game for you?
I think I feel the early onslaught from Scotland in like the first like 10, 20 minutes combined with the fact that England, I don't know what it was, they just seemed half awake. That they were really like lethargic in like the first 10, 15 minutes. I don't know if it's them being like get caught off guard or if it's a mentality thing being like, yeah, let's just walk it in sort of thing. And they just didn't rise to the occasion, which also then you've got the Arundel yellow card. I think that was in the first 10 minutes. It was really quick.
Hmm.
I didn't even see it.
You had one in the
Um,
first 10 minutes and the second 10 minutes.
yep. And I think that just caught England completely off their feet. And Scotland, yeah. And then I think Scotland set the tempo, which Scotland does well when they set the tempo. They're not really a catch-up team that if they're trailing, they find it quite hard. It's not impossible because obviously it was 2019 that comeback against England
Yeah.
and Twickenham that they can do it. it's just it's hard for them to do it.
The Six Nations has been very pleasing from a stats nerd's point of view because
Yeah,
it's very conforming to logic, which is at test level, you don't come back from three scores down,
yeah,
which 17-0 is three scores. And they didn't, which is from a stats nerd's point of view, it's like, that's what should happen. And it did
yeah,
happen. The math is mathing. But I think for me, in that first 20 minutes, I think that Finn Russell checked social media and said, "Oh, people are saying that George Ford's the best fly half in the tournament."
yeah.
Um, we'll see about that. And I think that in this game, Finn Russell put
Who
George.
who who said that? I don't
Couldn't possibly say it.
know.
The name escapes me.
You want me
But
to say it?
but I think the Finn Russell put George Ford in a box
Yeah.
in this game. Really, just and Caolan, you shared it in the group. Really fascinating bit of chat in on Virgin Media after this of both Peter O'Mahony and Conor Murray saying we don't realize just how much homework Finn Russell does on opponents, and he pause over them on the laptops and things, and you could see that he. For me, I got the vibe that Finn Russell came up with a plan and he was like, "I am going to do this." And I
Yeah,
think it was the second try. I think it was the Ben White try. Um, Finn Russell creates that try out of nothing,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing, and he very much said like, "Hey, it's more than just tactical kicking that makes you a good 10." And by the way, he did the tactical kicking pretty spot on. I actually really enjoyed it from someone who watches a lot of rugby. Watching George Ford and Finn Russell have a tactical kicking battle, I really found it interesting, and I do think that Finn Russell won. And
Mm.
the thing is, if you take away George Ford's tactical kicking, what are you left with? And it's failed drop goal attempts,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Can you tell that I don't like England? But
Yeah.
yeah, slightly. That's kind of the debate we're having here as well, though, and I think that's where it's kind of funny because I like George Ford. I think he's a good player, but I would not have him anywhere near the Russell Jalibert level, and I don't like doing cheer
not
talk the whole time.
even close. I'm
I
sorry.
know you think that, right? I wouldn't. I think he's along with like Crowley, Gerbisi, those guys, insofar as get them going, unbelievable players. I don't think any of the three of those are proper level raisers at test level, and I think they may be the sum of their parts at times. And I think George Ford, as good as he was against Wales, had moments where he did kind of struggle. The drop goal, like it was so prescribed. Now that's on everyone as well, but like it is prescribed, and I just think like Finn. And it's so lame to say, oh, he just turns up against England or whatever.
Mm.
But there is something about this game, about how England always focus on him that brings the best out of him. I think the best thing that Ireland do, and Ireland routinely beat Scotland. Ethan doesn't need me to say it; he knows
Yep.
himself. Like Ireland don't focus on Finn
Finn
in
always
that
has a
game,
bad game against
and he never
Ireland.
plays well. That's the thing. And I think England, and even the try that he set up with the little, flick pass, they were going in for the kill. It's like we have Finn one on one, got him. Like this is our blitz defense. This is where we nail it. And he thrives in those moments. And I think a little bit more patience from England. And look, I've skimmed through this game. I'll watch it back in full during the week to preview England. I think it's just that's the game that he rises to. And like in general, that's the game he rises to. But when you put him and you kind of say, you're pointing at him, you're staring him down, you're like, we're going to take you down. We can do that. No one has done it in the Premiership yet. So why do you think you can do it in the Six Nations?
I think that's part of in Finn's mind as well. Is like I play against yous every single week, and by
Yeah,
the way, I look like a god against you. So
he does.
URC players looking like gods in the Premiership. Who'd have thought? But not to be all John Inverdale and say "Hey, let's talk about England, but given that they lost, let's do it. Um, yeah, I think Ethan, would it be fair to say that 9 to 15, Scotland just have better players than England?
I think so. Like as you said about the whole George Ford not being in that top tier, I like George Ford, but to me, he's a nice, would you say, what's that word? Placeholder 10 for England while they try and figure out who comes next. Like he'll get the job done, but you wouldn't, he's not going to create a moment of magic.
What
And
do
they're
we
just,
think? Sorry, mate. What do
oh,
we think of the drop goal attempt? Because I've seen some people saying it was the right option, just badly executed. I don't know if I agree. What do we think?
I think it's him. it's kind of, I think it's a knee-jerk reaction
Hmm.
that England, trying to get something, trying to get the momentum, kind of like a reset button for England. Like I can't remember, I think it was the World Cup for England against Argentina that George Ford just spammed it. When they weren't going anywhere, they just went for a drop goal. And that's the thing, it's an easy 3 points for George Ford, but they didn't set it up that well. And if you break it down, it's incredible Matt Fagerson's workload that he's at that ruck and then he sees what George Ford's about to do, runs and charges it down, and it's just perfect timing.
Mm. Caolan, what's your thoughts?
I I I go back and forth. I think the drop goal strategy that England has gets a bit repetitive, and I think this is one of those moments. You have to have an ability, and I said this yesterday before the game, and actually, funnily enough, so Scotland scored most of their points in like a 12-minute period or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like the 15 minutes that we were all in with Andy Farrell and Caolan Doris. So everyone just checks their phone afterwards and goes, "What the hell is happening over in Murrayfield?" And I had that, and I was a little bit surprised. But I think for England, one thing I'd said all day was, I don't know, because everyone said England were going to win this game. I said England were going to win this game, but I never felt they were going to win handily because I don't know if they have that ability to go up through the gears unless you kind of do it for them. Like Wales kind of did it for them a small bit, and sometimes in the autumn it was done for them. I don't think they have that ability. That's where, as I think reset is a really good word to use, Ethan, because they can just press pause. Let's go back. Let's take the three. Let's go for it. Worst thing that happens, well, obviously this was the worst thing that happens to it, but usually worst thing that happens is you miss and you get the ball back. You get transition play. You can hit up again. Obviously, like cataclysmic event, as it turns out. But I just think, as a rule of thumb, it's nice to have, but ultimately it cannot be your calling card. Like it just can't. And I do wonder, and not to put it all on George Ford, it's not all on him. Some of it is on Borthwick Ball and how like,
Mm.
how pristine he is when it comes to the numbers and the maths. Would England be better off cheesing a penalty in that moment? Because that is more, I think that's more deflating. I think you kick a drop goal at that moment. Is it a 9 point game at that time? Something like that. They're trying to get it back to about a score. Scotland are saying they've nothing for us. They were camped in our 22. They have nothing for us. I think you cheese a penalty. It's a sense of, right, we need to lock in here. So I think that's where, I don't think England's reading of the games when they've gone drop goal heavy has often been that good. And I actually think that World Cup game, England were much better than Argentina for large passages of that one. Again, can they go up through the levels? And I think if I'm, as an Irish fan, I look at them, I'm like, there's areas where England can absolutely bully Ireland this weekend, but there's also areas where I'm like, let's rattle them. Let's really rattle them and see. And I'm starting to think that they're not great in those moments. And Ford is part of that. Mitchell is part of that. It's a massive axis, and I think I really like Fraser Dingwall. He's relatively inexperienced. I think it's a back row that can kind of be very defensive sometimes. You're taking out a third of your team a little bit more. That's where like it starts to get a little bit hairy, and it's always, winners write the history books and all that. Like I understand there's an area of that, but I just look at it and I'm like, maybe there's that bit of indecision. Maybe they're a little bit overcoached. Where exactly is it? I'm not 100% sure, but long answer, way dragged on. Not right idea for me, but I think momentum wise, I think Scotland would have actually been lifted if he kicks it. And then
I
obviously they do what they do.
that's where I am as well because if it goes over, they're still 8 points behind. So
Mm.
Scotland are looking at it going, we've been under pressure here. We've still got more than a score advantage, and he's gonna need to do three more of them for us to actually go behind. And I don't think there was a world where Scotland didn't score again in the second half. I don't think England were going to nil them in the second half under any circumstances. And even if you look at the second try that England did score to take them to 20 points, in my opinion, there was two very clear forward passes in that move that they didn't go back for whatever reason, which is a bit odd. But I guess Ethan, coming back to you, the it's kind of even the English press has been saying like, yeah, okay, you beat England, now what? So now what for Scotland? Is it just going to be same old that we've seen every year, and it's another fourth place in the Six Nations coming up? Is there any reason to believe that that isn't what's going to happen?
So I think that's what I'm also feeling as well. It's sure we're at least, you could say they're on target to meet the level that Scotland's consistently done, being like fourth or fifth. That sure they beat England. They might beat Wales. I mean, we didn't beat Italy, so we are slightly behind in that way. But it's I think this is good momentum. That obviously disappointing autumn, awful game last week, and that for this week everything went right.
Mm.
So they might look at that and be okay. We've got a game that we've got a very good position of winning in Wales next week. Still not a shoe-in because we've got a horrible record in Wales that you never know. And then last time we were in Wales, was that not the one we hemorrhaged about 30 points?
Yeah, you were three scores up
Yeah.
and ended up winning by a point.
Uh, that I think they'll be aware of that possibility, but at least they've got some momentum that, not the wooden spoon, the Triple Crown is still on. In theory, that
Mm.
might be the more realistic instead of, yeah, I don't know if anyone's going to beat France at the moment, but they might go, we could actually win a Triple Crown, which is probably the best thing Gregor could achieve because he's not beaten Ireland in this
Mm.
whole. I don't think, because I think I was speaking to my cousin about this yesterday. I know we last beat Ireland 2017, but I don't think Gregor was in charge then.
No, that was Vern Cotter's last
Uh,
last campaign. So like Townsend has never done it. And look, I would actually love a triple crown showdown between Ireland and Scotland on the final day because ultimately I don't think
Not
there's going to
England.
be not England. I don't think there's going to be anything else to play for in that game. Oh, sorry. The Six Nations has multiple trophies in every game, but you know what I mean. I don't think there'll be anything else to play for. But I like Tom English said it last week. Don't be surprised if Scotland win their next four games. Like, don't be. But at the same time, you lost to Italy. You got off on the wrong foot, and that's why this question keeps popping up. Like, Sione Tuipulotu said to BBC Radio 5 Live after the game, "We did this for Townsend." Do you know what? Fair play. Honest. I like that. Not sure most of Scotland would agree, but I like it. I respect it. But also at the same time, it's like, well, last week you didn't show any intent. You look poorly coached, do you know? And it's like, well, no wonder Scotland fans are a little bit apathetic at times. Now, not in Murrayfield, I will say. Atmosphere was again incredible, but no wonder it happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, just to finish it off, we finished the island talk by talking selection, Ethan. No Edinburgh players
yeah,
in the 15. Now, not not to say it, but Nucifora.
yeah.
Um, when you've only got two pro teams, to have one of them not represented in the 15 is odd, to say the least.
Yeah, do you know what makes so that was what the last time that happened was 1998. And do you know what makes that even worse this year? Is that back then we had the Border Reavers. So there's at
Absolutely.
least three, four teams. So now being two pro teams in Scotland and none of the Edinburgh players start, even though there's only two Scottish teams, there is a horrible horrible thing to deal with. And then they obviously renew Everett's contract.
Hmm.
Whether, I mean, we have talked about that there might be a plan that the Astor is cooking there that could pay off in a few years' time. But at the moment, they've got nothing to really justify it. But I feel I was quite sympathetic to the back line last week because, I'm glad they were experimenting with Dobie and Stain and TJ. But I probably would have swapped Dobie for Darcy this week
Hmm.
and had Dobie on the bench. Um, and I probably would have swapped TJ because I love TJ, but he's not a fullback. It's kind of like the inverse Blair
Well,
Kinghorn as a fly half.
if you make the changes that you suggested,
Mm.
then you can have Dobie and TJ as 22-23 in a 6-2 split. And
Yep.
they are the perfect 22-23 in a 6-2 split because between those two, you've got every single backline position covered. Um, but they won the game, so I guess we have to shut up about it. So
Before we
Yeah.
move off Scotland, can I ask a question on Tom Jordan actually? Because I only skimmed through this game, didn't see most of it. I was very unimpressed with him in Rome. I thought he was pretty poor and pretty out of place. Now, don't get me wrong, that was the same for about 20 of the 23 Scotland players in Rome. But
Yep.
whereabouts is he? Because like I know the Kinghorn thing, he's playing top 14. Where do you land on this kind of question? Obviously you'd probably like to have Kinghorn in the 23, but where are you on him, Ethan? On Tom Jordan, that is.
As in, what would I rather have him play? Or
Yeah.
Ooh, I feel he's at his best as a fly half. Like at the moment, I'd probably say he's like the clear successor to Finn. Not guaranteed,
Mm.
but out of the rest of them, he's probably at the moment it's between him and Hastings. And I'd say TJ probably plays most like Finn in that scale of, yeah, quite physical. Let's run it. Quite good. Well, when he kicks, he'll try and do some crazy stuff now and then. But Hastings to me is a slightly more relaxed. You'll see him further back, whereas TJ plays quite up front, which from an attacking point of view would be quite good, like more Finn-like. But yeah, he's not got that pace on him as a fullback. Like if you watch, let's say Josh Mackay, he's the best example that you see him running it back. TJ just seems really slow. He's a good carrier,
Mm.
but he's not got that bolt. And TJ loves to play really deep, so it's kind of the opposite
Yeah.
for him.
Especially with like Kyle Stain. Like Kyle Stain is an incredible winger in my opinion.
Mm.
Not the fastest. So
Yep.
I do wonder if Scotland lack that little bit. And even like from my own personal vantage point, I don't see the point in having Hastings on the bench. I think just
Mm.
go 6-2, let Tom Jordan cover. Finn is going 80 minutes each of the last 2 weeks anyways. Like
Yep.
they won
Yeah.
this game by what? To
Ben
11
Ben
points?
Healy knows all about that. How
Yeah.
many times does he sit on
That
Scotland's bench?
that's true. But I'm just like I don't get some of these decisions and like if Jordan is in your opinion maybe more of a 10, that 6-2 again as you said Hugh, I think it's crying out for it and like
Mm.
especially when Scotland very easily could go up against France and Ireland in the last 2 weeks, pick up injuries and start to look very small. Like we've seen that film a few times already.
Oh yeah, I think that's why they've got Hastings there. And that obviously the game against Ireland last year was a disaster when Finn and Darcy took each other out at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's why I think
That was
Hastings.
BK 10 in that game, wasn't it?
No, I think Jordan went
No,
to
I think
10.
Jordan. Yeah,
Mm,
and I think Bayless moved to wing, if I recall. Um, but I think that's Townsend being a bit over concerned because what I probably would do is either go 6-2 with Jordan and Dobie, or I think have Hutchison as a third option because I think Hutchison can also play 10. He probably could play fullback. I mean, Hutch is just desperate to play. Like he's deserves being in the Scotland team. I don't care what he does. He could be a prop for all I care. Just get him in there.
That was Jamie Dobie who went to the wing in that game against Ireland last year with Stafford McDowell to 12.
Hmm.
So it is worth looking at. So it's easy to forget too, but a lot of missed last year's Six Nations, I suppose. So they've
yeah,
had Tom
Yeah.
Jordan
absolutely.
has moved his way around the back line already.
I don't think he played until the Lions tour to Pelosi.
No, didn't he
Yeah.
get injured against the Quins or
Yeah.
someone?
Yeah.
Sione, no, he Sione got injured before the Six Nations because it was a pec injury.
Mm, I remember
And
that, yeah.
yeah, which is no, because I remember Arnie got one when he was like obviously in his prime bodybuilding, and the torn pec is not something you
Oh,
want.
they look ugly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've seen pictures. Anyway, let's move on from that swiftly. Before we move on to the final game of the week, just want to remind people that if you're listening on audio formats, please remember to give us a 5-star review and share a link with a friend. And even if you're watching/listening on Spotify, because you can do both these days, leave a comment down there as well. The audio version is the thing that we need help most with growing, and any support that you can offer us for that is vastly, vastly appreciated. So, yeah, cheers. All right, it's Wales time. Um, uh, I genuinely don't know how to feel after that game because every time I think that something went all right, I'm like, yeah, but just because it went better than last week doesn't mean that it was good because last week was the worst performance, especially the first half, I think I might have ever seen from a test team. Like, and so when something went all right, like the midfield bombs, that worked kinda. They had a plan and executed it, and it sort of worked. So that's something. But I don't want to be like, oh yeah, so that shows that we're on the right track or something, because that's like not quite enough. I think we looked all right with when Jared Evans came on. We had a bit of shape in attack. I think the scrum was good. I think France needs to be worried about their scrum, and we'll come on to that a bit later. Um, I think the line out seems to work. Um, uh, but it's really like the bar is so low that I really don't know what is good anymore. Did either of you two watch this?
I did. I'm kind of a little bit annoyed. Like a little bit of a gripe here. I think Six Nations fixture scheduling is all over the place. Like I really do. Like Ireland Italy should be the Sunday game, and it should be Calcutta Cup and Wales France on the Saturday. But anyways, I watched it. I'd agree with a lot of that. I think France have an amazing ability to look worse in the games they should win by more. Like we see this in the autumn quite a bit as well, where like against Japan or Fiji or whoever, even against like Australia, that's nearly always their worst game. Like consistently. I know they're pretty poor against South Africa this year, but or the November just gone. And I think that kind of fed in and they looked scatty and it looked like let's just play everything, but like the wrong people were getting on the ball for me at times. And like don't get me wrong, I know maybe this is a little bit my own bias thinking France are much better. I'd have more positives from individual Welsh players this week than I would have had last week, if
Yeah,
that's okay to say.
no, I think so.
Whereas with France, I actually think this was actually a game they needed because last week they won something like 30% of their kicks back. Like they had a pretty high retention rate, and if they didn't, they won them on the ground or in the next phase. They kind of struggled to win that ball back this time around, and I actually think that'll be good for them when they come up against Scotland and England because like they'll look at Ireland and they'll be like, maybe it's a bit of an anomaly. Maybe we need to work hard on this again, work on those transition phases a little bit more. Maybe that'll be good for them. But for Wales, like Ellis Mee really impressed me. I thought he was one of Wales's best players. I'm delighted Reece Carey scored just because of, everything that was said about him under the previous regime. I thought I thought the Welsh back row put themselves about, but obviously like Sheku Pro, like sorry, I don't like to swear, but like world class operators. Like world class. I thought Sheku was excellent at times today. But it is just that murky middle ground where you like kind of not even how we used to talk about Italy, but like you're kind of like, well, I don't want to be too mean to Wales, and especially with everything that's going on, because I genuinely feel like even if this was a super talented Welsh group, which I don't think it is, they'd be set up to fail anyways. Do you know? So I'm a little bit like, again, to use the apathy word when it comes to them, which is a pity, and obviously not sold out as well. And I know Hugh, it'll be said on rap, you'll be saying it, everyone will be saying it this week, but
At
I
times, it
I don't
sounded
know.
like a France home game.
It did, and even Jonathan Davies's video, there seemed to be like a pocket of French in front of the media where they were sitting, which is never good in the first place because it'll always distort the coverage, especially with
The
some,
Marseillaise rang out a good couple of times towards
yeah,
the end.
and especially with all the bad faith actors in Welsh rugby as it is. I think that's going to be the storyline this week. But like credit too. Like the flip side is we had a Thursday night game last week where a lot of people were saying there was very little away fans. So credit to the French for turning up. But
This is the
obviously,
thing, and I'm
you
just
know,
sorry, just on this because I saw a Welsh journalist, a highly respected Welsh journalist, posted this earlier and said like, "Oh, I thought maybe because of Sunday there wouldn't be, away fans and things." And this is such a profoundly Welsh thing of excuses not to turn up to rugby matches. It's something that really does my head in. It's like, oh, it's at 7 o'clock on a Saturday. I'm not going to that. That's ridiculous. Or it's on a Sunday. No one could possibly go to a rugby match on a Sunday. And it's like the French have weekly games that kick off at 9 p.m. on a Thursday night or 9 p.m. on like we're recording now. There's a top 14 match going on as we speak. It's actually El Clasico between Stade Francais and Toulouse. And that's the premier top 14 game. The biggest game gets moved to 9 o'clock on a Sunday. Like, and do you know what the difference is? The French love rugby and they go to the games. Right. So when Welsh fans are like, oh, I'm not going because of the kickoff time, I'm like, well, clearly you don't love rugby then. This is just something that winds me up. So, and it's something that I've seen Cy Williams post about as well as the excuses that Welsh fans come up for not going to rugby matches. Unbelievable. But anyway, whew, um, coming
It's
back,
good to get these things off your chest.
Yeah.
coming back to like the Welsh team, I thought Eddie James will take a lot from this game because France really targeted his outside shoulder and they got a bit of joy. They put LBB and Jalibert. Jalibert, people don't talk about how fast he is. He's ridiculously fast. And they came up with set plays, specifically starter plays off lineouts to get on Eddie James's outside shoulder. And it was a tough watch at times because this is a player who I love and I back all the way. But it was like, oh, it did work. But in the last 20 minutes, I think he deserves a lot of credit for how he didn't quit and he didn't let it get him down in the last 20 minutes. He was absolutely everywhere and he was into absolutely everything. And he's the kind of player, he got a big write up from Sam Warburton as well. Um, he's the kind of player like you want that this guy can be one of the fulcrums of this team moving forward. He's nowhere near his ceiling. If this guy gets coached properly, this guy could go on to level upon level. And so I'm happy that in the end he's finished the game with most people saying actually he's probably one of the better players. So I'm happy about that. I think Wainwright does what he does. He's a 7.5 out of 10 in every game minimum.
Yeah.
The scrum went better than I expected, but like I said, I think France needs to be worried about their scrum, especially with Italy next. I think France needs to be worried about how their scrum has gone. It is a weakness. Um,
It kind of paints Ireland's job in the scrum time last week in a different light now because
mhm.
Ireland have now gone in and well, my running theory with Ireland's scrum is that probably their best front rower is the weak point. I think Dan Sheehan is an issue. He's 4 inches taller than Tom Clarkson, 3 inches taller than Jeremy Luckman. Anyone who's ever played front row knows that's a lot of power to be coming in on one man. You're just going to be putting everyone under pressure. But France is like, I think they actually have good front rowers. I think the fact that they're not as aggressive as they were last year seems to not suit them. It feels like they've played like a really safe, like line out and scrum have been really safe, and I actually just don't think it suits them. And maybe that's
Maybe they just
pseudo
want to restart play.
intellectualism. Do you know, honestly, like it could be something as simple as that. And like even I actually don't think it's like the 2 second ones that they've selected. I don't think it's as simple as that. I just think there's a little bit they're a little bit off. But then again, for France, pitch up for Ireland. They know well they'll win the next 2 weeks. There could be a little bit of that as well. And to kind of go back on Jalibert, I'm a big Jalibert fan. Everyone with eyes is a big Jalibert fan. Like he's unbelievable. But like to see how France have just clicked and all the question marks was, will it work? Will it work between Japan and Jalibert? Will it work? You discussed on your own show as well, Hugh. I seen the clips. Like it was the question. Seamless. It is like he's Jalibert's played the best rugby he's played in blue. Possibly over the last 2 weeks. And I think there's to kind of go back to Ireland, there's this narrative about like ceilings and whatever. For me, the ceiling is always going to be set by your athletic ability. That's why George Ford will always have a high floor. I don't think he'll ever have a high ceiling. Well, I know he's like 34 now, but you know what I mean. I don't think that's what like players like that don't have high ceilings, in my opinion. Jalibert's ability to beat you in contact, to beat you with footwork, to beat you with his kicking game, to beat you with everything. That's his difference maker, and I thoroughly enjoy watching him over the last 12 months or that. I know like he knocked out a couple of Irish teams last year in Europe on back-to-back weeks, but thoroughly enjoyed watching him at the moment. He's a delight. And France on I don't want to say unstructured play. That feels like a little bit
No,
too.
I think that's fair to call it. I think
It is it
that's
is
how they would
unstructured.
call it too.
But I think it's more the transition phases that they're even better. Like fair enough, third, fourth phase they could get unstructured and they could do something. But that first or second phase, where it's a bit haphazard, that's where they're clinical. Like there was a ball kicked down the left hand touchline the first half. Bielbieri takes off, and they just look. It's like as if they're asking you to kick the ball to them. It's like this is our thing. It's like please do it, and we'll, you know what I mean? And I'm thoroughly enjoying France at the moment.
Because BLBRA scored in the 10th minute, you kind of forget that he scored. Like this is the
Yeah,
thing about BLBRA at the moment is he scores so much that you just like forget. You
he's
just
over a try a game, isn't he?
yeah. 1.1 tries per Six Nations appearance at the moment. They showed it at halftime in the game. Absolutely insane. But like you could, I did, and we did this when we talked about it on the top 14 digest last week. You're talking about star players. You can name pretty much every player, like every player. The I'm really fascinated by the second row of Olivon and Guillard. Like the rugby they're playing, ball in hand, is absolutely sensational. No second rows in the world are playing anything like what they're playing. And the fact that I don't think they've ever played in the second row together, and it looks like they've been doing it since they were toddlers, like
And,
playing
and
in.
neither of them have played that amount of like Olive on most of his second row appearances have been this season in terms of his overall career. Gier has kind of switched back and forth, but like Gier is 122 kg. Like he's a big man, but he's not incredibly. Do you know what I mean? Like he's not a Miafu.
Yeah, exactly. That's about
Olivon,
what I was about to say. It's not Miafu.
no, and Olivon has put on a bit of like he looks a little bit bigger since his injuries, since like his run of injuries. Not a whole lot more. Had one, line break there at one stage. And weirdly, and I think this is where France's depth becomes a beauty because they don't have to go with that tight headlock. They don't have to go with the power hooker. They don't have to go with the power number eight because across the board, and when you add in the 6-2 split, every box is being ticked. Do you know, like even the fact they don't have Budahan or Aldrit or
Oh yeah, but I keep forgetting about Budon. He's
yeah.
so good. He's
And
such a good
Flamont, this
player.
was this was his his game back. I know he got a full half hour. Like Letty Nuki's running over guys for fun as well. I think this is the be like France. There was always a fear. There's always a fear. What if France and England click at the right time, like together? Like that's always been the fear for the Celtic nations. But now it's like, oh my God! Not only have France clicked, they figured out that you could have roles and you can you don't have to pick up star power and you can drop guys. And it's like, oh my God, they don't have Peno or Fiku, and like they didn't have
They,
Flamont last
that
week.
that
And
was the kind of thing about like the Peno drop. Peno scored 2 tries for Bordeaux yesterday, by the way, against Cast. But the thing with the Peno drop is everyone was like, "Oh my God!" And but then people who like follow French rugby were like, "Yeah, it just means that Atasogbe is going to play, and he might be better." And
he's played well. I don't think he was as good today as he was last week, but he
he's
has
so
he's played
good.
well.
He's but and the that Poe connection, I'm really enjoying Poe's kind of like emergence this year. They're second in the top 14, and rightly so. Um, they obviously got the Poe centre pairing of Bro Buri and Gaetan. Just what a luxury that is. Being your second choice centre pairing, and Atisogbe is such a ridiculous player. Oradu went back to his club. Like he would start for a lot of test teams, and
Yeah.
what I was just quickly on Olivon and Guillard is I think if France need a bit more heft, what they could do is they could start 2 different second rows and move those 2 back into the back row. And then suddenly you're looking at an absolutely ginormous pack. You're like, oh, well, that's that problem
And if they
solved.
do that, they probably go 7-1 and ask Oscar Jagu to cover
Oh,
center again
oh my
because he
goodness.
can. Like that's the thing because
And how
because he
good has
can.
Serran been off the bench in these last 2 games as well?
Two
But
games that have really suited him as well. Like it's completely open. And like someone said I won't name them because they don't want to be named, but like there's a little bit of a fuck you factor in the fact that Saran came on with over 20 minutes to go. It's like
definitely.
that's
I
very
think
early.
I think I think that's fair. And one guy who again, a bit like LBB, is just like, yeah, it's normal. So you just brush over him. Tomo Ramos is one of the best players in the world. Full stop. He's
Again, I don't think he was as good as he was last week, but he was still pretty good.
I'm watching him just like I don't know if a Welsh player laid a finger on him. Like he's a player that we will tell our grandkids about. Just like what you should have seen this guy. That guy could play rugby. We're trying to get it back onto a Welsh point of view. That it's not a crazy contortion of logic to say that this might have been Wales's best performance under Steve Tandy, and yet they have once again conceded 50 points at home. So they've conceded 50 points in all but one home game they played under Steve Tandy, and that one was Japan.
Mm.
And like I said, the last home game of the last Six Nations, they conceded 60. they should have probably conceded 50 against England last week as well. I don't there were kind of things that worked. Like I said, I think the midfield bombs worked, and that's something that they've identified and executed, and it went okay. It didn't really lead to anything. Like I say, the line out went okay, the scrum went okay, but again,
Can I actually say, like, it's a bit weird when you concede 50 points. Thought the back three as a whole did all right. Like, don't get me wrong, like, it's not easy. Like, three generational talents in the back three for France. Thought Reece Zammit attacked well. I thought Ellis Mee was really hardworking, like, used his size to his advantage against BLBRE, which
mm,
easier said than done. Like, tough man to lay a glove on. And I thought, name escapes me now on the left wing.
Josh Adams.
Josh Adams, yeah. Couldn't remember for the life of me. I thought he was decent. Again, not brilliant, but I thought he was decent. And I think there is like if you're going to take small bits from every game, that's a little bit of something. I thought their back row was okay as well, but ultimately 50 points, like it is. Like I know the game is
Oh.
getting more high scoring than ever before, but it is just that like it's the perception, isn't it?
Well, we'll talk about him, Adam Beard. This is a guy who the amount of bollocks that we've been fed about Adam Beard, about the Welsh lineout only works when he's there. We've now got multiple examples of that being completely false and not true. Saying, oh, he's a defensive leader. Well, check the scoreboard. How's that going? Um, he's the thing is, if you're saying he's a leader on the pitch and he's one of the senior players and stuff, and then you look at what will be referred to for the rest of his career as the kick against France. Now, I don't think you can actually call it that because a kick implies that a foot touched a ball, which is not what happened. The ball hit the floor, not a foot. When you are supposed to be one of the leaders of the team, when you're supposed to be one of the senior players, when you're supposed to be one of the rallying voices, this is the stories that we've been fed about him time after time after time. And you're doing that. And by the way, that wasn't the only bad thing that he did in this game. Before that and after that, he had many multiple bad moments. So he needs to look in the mirror and say, what am I bringing to this team? Exactly. And look, Daft Jenkins didn't have a great day out against England last week, but I think he's got credit in the bank and he's got much more of his career ahead of him than Adam Beard. It's kind of like, in my opinion, there's a perfectly serviceable Ben Carter on the bench. And there needs to be a question I've asked of what is Adam Beard bringing the Ben Carter isn't at this point because, like I said, there's a lot of people who've made a lot of claims about Adam Beard, and one by one, those claims are being knocked over as proven to be not true. And they were never true, by the way. They were never true. And people fed us those lines because they wanted to look clever. And now they just look stupid. So that's what I got to say about that. Look, Adam Beard is. If this was a young player, if this was like a 20-year-old on his fourth cap, I wouldn't say any of this. That's not the case with Adam Beard. So we need to be a bit more honest. So I don't know. Ethan, any thoughts on this game?
I unfortunately didn't catch it because I got my times mixed up.
Yeah.
I thought it was later on. So basically, as soon as it started, I was heading to the gym and I was like, I think was halftime not close-ish? Was it not like,
They got the bonus point just before
It was
halftime, wasn't it?
26-7. So it was actually
Yeah.
closer than
yeah,
it was against England, which was 29-0.
but I
Yeah,
So
mean,
no.
go
No,
on,
no,
Ethan.
no. I was actually just going to jump in there. Like
oh,
it was closer,
mhm.
but it was a kind of France's tradition. Is that
I
fair to
think I
say?
think France are the best team that has come to Cardiff since Tandy took over. Because I
Yeah.
think Argentina was a mix and match team. Like the All Blacks, that was literally the last game that Scott Robertson was in charge of before he got sacked. So that tells you, where they were. You could say the Springboks, obviously the Springboks won by more. They were, restricted in terms of selection, but it just meant that they had to pick some different world class players instead of the other ones. Um, so it's between them and that. So like I said, there is a world where you say this is the best performance under Tandy, and yet there were still things that happened during the game. We're like, what? are you doing? And there are aspects of the game where they don't look coached, particularly in defense, just how narrow they are. There's like
Mhm.
something, why has that not been fixed? What's going wrong? And I've seen some people blame Eddie James for that. Like, blame a guy on this was his fifth ever pro starter outside centre. Like, it's Eddie James's fault for not organising the back line. Like, what? So none of the other 14 players on the pitch know that they don't all have to stand on the one side of the posts. None of the rest of them know that. Eddie James has to tell them and that's it. So, yeah. But it's kind of, where do we go next? So is it Scotland at home next? Actually,
Scotland at
Scotland.
home next, yeah.
let's go
Yeah.
into the predictions then.
Will,
So
will will I put on my presenter hat for a second and pitch you against each other and
go
or
on.
is that a bit unfair? Because like
No, I think it's, look, Wales are going to lose. There you go. Um, Ireland versus
at least
England.
it's on BBC.
Yeah,
Small positives and
yeah.
Premier, I
So
believe.
we're going to be enjoying the adverts during scrum breaks for England versus Ireland. My prediction for this game is that it is going to be low scoring. I think this has got 15-12 written all over it. What do you guys think?
A lot of Ireland England games at Twickenham over the years have been low scoring. In fairness, 2020 Ireland didn't rack up a huge number. 2022 they won, to be fair, with a bonus point. 2024 was like 22-24, not massively high scoring. 2018 Ireland scored three tries to one, I think it was, and 2016 and 14 were both fairly low scores as well. So definitely a good chance of that. I think, as I was saying earlier, England, it's about stopping them at source, ultimately. Um, Easier said than done, yes, but I think it's about stopping them at source. Granted, I haven't watched the Scotland game back yet. I haven't gone over the stats yet. I'll have that done before the Interpro show, hopefully, where you can find all our latest about Ireland. But I just look at this and I'm like, I felt before the tournament started, Ireland would be one from three to start, and I actually think they're playing worse than I thought they would. I think arguably England are playing worse than I thought they would as well. I'll throw that out for the interest of fairness, but I'm just not happy where Ireland are at, and for all the talk of is it disingenuous to say Ireland are in a slide? Ireland are in a slide. Ireland are in a slump. They've been in a slump since November 2024. That's not on the players brought in 2024. That is just a fact of it. Ireland have been in a slump for that long. And I fear, because I'm probably giving too much away because it's going to be my Substack this week. When Ireland are in a slump going to Twickenham, they typically get beaten. 2008, last game, well beaten. 2012, last game, well beaten. 2020 went there twice when they weren't a good team, well beaten in both occasions. I don't know if England could beat Ireland heavily, but I think they will win, and I think it could be. There's just a part of me that looks at the last 160 minutes more, sorry, more looks at every game Ireland has played over the last 18 months and says there's a chance that this is a chastening experience because they've gone backwards. And the only thing I'm resting on for hope is there'll be a reaction. It's Ireland against England, and the fact that I think England could overdo it because England are not a good team when they overplay.
Mm, mm. Ethan, what you saying?
I feel like, again, I feel like it'll be a low scoring one because I think at the moment England's not really a high or typically a high scoring team. They just don't strike me as one that, like France, where they just pass it and they do something absolutely ridiculous. I think because, yeah, I think England will probably edge it on the basis that there's far less significant English injuries. And their scrum was like the only good thing they had this week.
Mm.
Whereas,
I think my thing is that I don't, and this is one of those things that could age really badly, is I don't think Steve Borthwick has it in him to fix issues in a week in the space of 7 days.
Does
I,
Andy Farrell?
well, I mean, no, but okay, let me preface this. I think England will win,
Okay.
but I don't think, I think that the way that England win is very much going back to peak Borthwick ball and, very 10-man rugby. I think honestly, beyond 10, he might say to them, lads, here's your match day bonus. You enjoy that. We shan't be needing you in this one. But, I hope you enjoy watching scrums and mauls. And I think that's how England win this game. Because going back to what we said about Ireland getting outmuscled by Italy, I think England are going to have way too much physicality for Ireland. I don't.
If you'll endure me for a second, because I think you've nailed it there. Borthwick ball, peak Borthwick ball is what we're going to see this week, and Ireland cannot complain if it becomes a scrum game. But I was writing about England before the championship started. You've probably read this when I wrote it, but I said, in spite of all the TNT funded PR about the Prem, being this super exciting backs league, Borthwick has reverted to England's true identity. Bish, bash, bosh, run over you, run around you, and be generally hard to stomach. That's England at their best. That's the thing that scares me. If this was an England team scoring 40 points one week and 20 points another week, don't care. Like typical Prem stuff, don't care. It's the fact that England are just super physical, super unlikable, super rigid. They've always been at their best when they're like that. Always. And that does kind of scare me, to be honest. But at the same time, you said conceive Borthwick turning around the week. I actually agree. I don't think he can. I think the only way he does that is by your leaders standing up. And that's one thing. Whose leaders are more likely to stand up after a poor week? I think it's England's, to be honest. Like I told you, he only played 55 minutes this week.
I was going to say he had a very quiet game.
He had a very quiet game from what I've seen as well. But I would not be. I've never seen him have a bad game against Ireland ever, or against any Irish province. So I don't think it'll happen again.
No, I probably agree. I probably agree. Anyway, moving on to Wales versus Scotland. Ethan, how does this game go? What does this game look like? Because part of me just struggles to, even though it has literally happened the last two times that we've played you, part of me
Yeah.
struggles to envisage Scotland just turning up and just doing a professional job against Wales.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably going to look really pretty for Scotland for about 40, 50 minutes, and then it's going to be absolutely despair for 20 minutes and quite squeaky bum time for both teams. I think, well, I've said this a million times, being like, oh, hopefully that Scotland's mentality issue gone sorted, to then be proven horribly wrong the next week. I think Scotland does have an issue this week in that Dobie, Dempsey, and Ritchie were all described as badly injured yesterday. So
Ooh,
that's quite a big blow. Like Dobie is a shame, but obviously they still got Doohan, they've got Kyle Rowe, they've got I'm trying to think, they could easily start Darcy. So for him, that's not an issue. Dempsey to me is probably the biggest
I
one
agree.
because I can't remember where I said it, but I mean Jack Dempsey's just got that dog in him that he will run at you hard. He just looks like the Giga Chad, that he always looks cool and collected and he's just focused. Um Richie was a shame though, because had a really good game
He's a
yesterday.
leader. He's a leader.
Yeah. So I think our back row, like Richie will probably be replaced by either starting Gregor Brown again or Andy Onyama Christie. It's more Dempsey that, yeah, we've got Bradbury, but the drop off between Dempsey and Bradbury is quite big. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's
Maybe
not
it's Freddie
impossible.
Freddie Douglas o'clock.
Possibly Liam McConnell. I think we should really be rotating in extent to an extent. Obviously, not like play. I don't know. I'm trying to think like Gus War or anything, but more like kind of like what they did where they swapped Macbeth and Schumann. I would probably swap Schumann for Sutherland in that you still got some consistency with the team for the people you want for the rest of the tournament, but giving some people like a breather. So like you could probably put Darge on the bench and start Douglas.
Hmm.
It's obviously I don't think they should do a full reset because they want that momentum. But yeah, Freddie Douglas, Jackal King, let's get him. Let's get him down there.
I think this is the perfect game to bring Freddie Douglas in. From a Welsh point of view, I can see it going pretty similar to how it went last year, to be honest. I can see us scoring tries and ultimately losing um, in a late comeback. I think the last two games against Scotland have gone the same way. Of they go out to a big lead and then we score a few tries and ultimately it's not enough. I can see it going the same way. And that's it's not how it went against France today, but it's kind of the pattern of the game that it went, is that we started playing well when it was already too late. So yeah, a lot of people said before the Six Nations that they can see Wales beating Scotland. I don't know what data that was
Yeah.
based on. I think that was just pure Welsh delusion. We're a funny nation when we do rugby expectations, because we're both incredibly one-eyed and think that our players are inherently the best, and yet also are the most doom and gloom supporters in the whole world. So it's quite the feat of mountain gymnastics. And then finally, uh, France versus Italy. Oh, this is fun. This is a Sunday game. France versus Italy. Now, like I said, I think the thing that France needs to be worried about is the scrum. I think that Italy can make it a very long afternoon for them if the game goes a certain way. I posted on one of my many accounts that France needs to be targeting points difference in these two games against Wales and Italy, and that if they can get to the plus 100, then it's one hand on the trophy. Now, they're halfway there. They're on plus 62 at the moment. And given that they put 70 points on Italy last year, you think that maybe winning by 30 odd in this game, particularly because it's at home, should be possible. But some people said that was disrespectful to Italy. What do we think?
I I think like realistically, if France click, they should be able to win by a big score. I don't think that's disrespectful to say, but Italy are improved, and I think Italy will take a lot from this week, even more so than Scotland, because they've never pitched up in Dublin ever before. Like they've been a non-factor. So my only concern is this is somewhat competitive at halftime. Maybe France by 7 points. They bring on that bomb squad, and Italy, after two really attritional weeks, start to tire. And then I can see it unraveling from there, to be honest. I think set piece can be an avenue. I think you can get penalty ladders on France when they're not fully clued in. That's how Ireland got all 14 of their points, was just getting penalty access. But are Italy clinical enough? No. I think they'll be dogged, but I think fitness may tell, because they don't have the deepest squad. They haven't rotated a huge amount. They won't rotate a huge amount. And I think that'll be their undoing, unfortunately. But I think France will still rotate though as well. And I think they may get a little bit janky. I think France are in a great position, to be honest. Like they're 2 from 2, they're 10 points, they've got plus whatever on the points difference, like plus 60 or whatever it is. They're in a very good position right now. But that sometimes is when France dip a little bit, kind of like what we seen today, as we were on about earlier.
I'm trying to find. Oh, it's here. I'm trying to find on the Six Nation website where the table actually is. Let's have a wee look. So the thing about the Six Nations, it's only 5 games long. So after
Yeah,
2 games, you're like nearly done. But
it's a
France,
sprint.
France currently with a 4 point advantage. You would
Can we
expect,
just say Scotland being second is incredibly funny
Yeah,
after all the doom and gloom?
let's just end it there, guys.
you
That's
would you would
that'll do.
expect Scotland to beat Wales with a bonus point, so they'll go to 11. But
Hmm.
then you would expect France to beat Italy with a bonus point, and then yeah, like I said, look at the points difference. England's still on plus 30. Then their 40-point win against Wales is starting to look just a little bit normal now at this point. Now I know that France actually matched it, so maybe that's a bit nonsense, but um, yeah. And then so I'm trying to think what I want to say here. If France, for me, if I'm giving the team talk to France, I'm saying, look, lads, if we can beat Italy well, then we're one hand on the title here after 3 games, because then they can, not that they'll want to, because they want the slam desperately, but if they can get, like I said, to 95 plus on the points difference, then they can afford to drop a game to either Scotland or England and still win. And I don't at the moment I can't see them losing to England at home, to be honest. I actually think that the Scotland game is more of a risk to them, just shooting from the hip here.
Yeah.
Um, And as we've seen in the Six Nations, everything can change in a week. Absolutely everything can change in a week. But they're in a great position. They're in an absolutely great position. Wow, Wales 0 points, not even a bonus point of any kind to speak of. 3 tries. Wales have scored 3 tries in their last 3 Test matches. It's pretty bad rugby. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you to everybody for watching or listening, depending on what audio platform that you're on. Like, subscribe, 5-star rating, share, hit hype if that's still a thing on YouTube. I'm not sure if it is. And that just leaves me to say thank you to Caolan and Ethan for joining me this week.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And enjoy your rugby, and I hope that everybody's team wins. Bye.